Israeli forces are facing an unprecedented wave of multi-front attacks launched by a coalition of Iranian-backed militant groups, including Hezbollah from Lebanon, the Islamic Resistance of Iraq, and Houthi militants from Yemen. These attacks have overwhelmed Israel's military defenses and marked a significant escalation in the ongoing regional conflict. Over the past few days, reports have emerged of coordinated drone, rocket, and missile strikes targeting several Israeli cities, causing widespread damage and raising alarm across the nation. The multi-pronged assault is being described as one of the most significant and sustained attempts to challenge Israel's security in recent memory. Hezbollah, the Lebanese militia with close ties to Iran, has launched a barrage of rockets and missiles from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. These attacks have targeted military installations, infrastructure, and civilian areas, exacerbating the already tense situation in the region. Israeli air defenses have managed to intercept some of the incoming missiles, but the sheer volume of the strikes has stretched Israel's defensive capabilities to their limits. Meanwhile, the Islamic Resistance of Iraq has also escalated its involvement, with reports indicating that several missile attacks have been launched from Iraq's territory toward Israeli targets. While the exact number of missiles fired remains unclear, sources indicate that the strikes have been coordinated with other regional actors, likely as part of a broader strategy to weaken Israeli deterrence and force a shift in the balance of power in the region. The involvement of Iraq-based militias represents a troubling expansion of the conflict, with Iraq becoming a new front in the struggle against Israeli forces. Additionally, Yemen's Houthi militants, who have been actively supported by Iran in their long-running conflict with Saudi Arabia, have entered the fray by launching a series of drone attacks aimed at key Israeli cities and military bases. The Houthis' use of drone technology has been particularly effective, with several drones reportedly striking targets in Tel Aviv and other major urban centers. The attacks are seen as part of a wider strategy to undermine Israeli security through unconventional warfare tactics, including the use of advanced drone technology. The convergence of these multiple fronts has placed significant pressure on Israeli security forces. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, are now facing the challenge of defending against simultaneous attacks from multiple hostile groups operating across different countries in the region. The scale of the assault has triggered widespread concern in Israel, with government officials calling for a coordinated military response to neutralize these threats. At the same time, the increased strain on Israel's military resources has prompted discussions about the country's long-term security posture and its ability to cope with the growing number of adversaries. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to take decisive action against the groups responsible for the attacks, calling them an unprecedented threat to Israel's security. Netanyahu, along with other Israeli officials, has framed the attacks as part of a broader Iranian strategy to destabilize the region and expand its influence through proxy groups. In response, Israel has mobilized additional military units, particularly air defense systems, in an effort to intercept incoming missiles and drones. The IDF is also reportedly preparing for a ground campaign in southern Lebanon to target Hezbollah's rocket launchers and military infrastructure. The United States and several European countries have expressed solidarity with Israel, condemning the multi-front assault and offering military assistance in the form of intelligence sharing and the provision of advanced air defense technology. U.S. officials have reaffirmed their commitment to Israel's security, with President Joe Biden pledging to support Israel in its defense against the ongoing attacks. However, there have been growing calls from international leaders for de-escalation and a return to diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the broader regional tensions that have contributed to the rise of these proxy groups. Despite the global outcry, the situation remains dire for Israel, as the barrage of rockets, missiles, and drones continues to wreak havoc across the country. The Israeli military is working around the clock to neutralize the threats posed by these regional actors, but the complexity of the situation has raised questions about the effectiveness of Israel's long-term security strategy in the face of such multifaceted threats. The attacks have not only affected Israel's military installations but also disrupted civilian life. Several cities have been forced into lockdowns, with schools, businesses, and transportation systems coming to a halt as a result of ongoing airstrikes and rocket fire. Hospitals in affected areas are operating under extreme pressure, dealing with both casualties from the attacks and the logistical challenges of treating those injured in the chaos. The Israeli government has warned its citizens to remain vigilant, urging them to stay close to bomb shelters and to heed instructions from local authorities. Public shelters across the country are overcrowded as the fear of further attacks intensifies. In addition to the immediate threat of missile and drone strikes, there are concerns that the conflict could spill over into a wider regional war, involving more actors from across the Middle East. As the situation unfolds, analysts are watching closely for signs of further escalation. Iran's role in these proxy attacks has drawn particular attention, with many observers noting that Tehran's influence in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen could be a driving force behind the coordinated offensive. If this is indeed the case, it would mark a significant step in Iran's efforts to increase its strategic leverage in the region by aligning with militant groups that share its animosity toward Israel. The geopolitical ramifications of these attacks are significant, as they reflect the deepening divide between Iran and its allies on one side, and Israel, the US, and Western powers on the other. The conflict highlights the volatility of the Middle East, where proxy wars and regional rivalries often spill over into direct confrontations that have far-reaching consequences. For now, Israel is bracing for what could be a prolonged period of heightened tensions, as the multi-front assault continues to test its military capabilities and its resilience in the face of a diverse and increasingly sophisticated array of threats. Whether the Israeli Defense Forces can contain and ultimately neutralize the threat posed by Hezbollah, the Islamic resistance of Iraq, and the Houthis remains uncertain. However, one thing is clear: the stakes in the region have never been higher, and the potential for further escalation looms large as these groups continue to target Israel with ever more advanced weaponry and tactics.